I've just left Ulverston, where I stayed last night, and I'm now on the Cumbria Way, which I intend following all the way to Carlisle. It's just over 70 miles. It's going to take me, it's now Saturday morning, I'm going to finish on Wednesday. So trip's nearly coming to an end. By that time I'd have walked around 400 miles. Pub last night was very cheap. The room was very cheap. It was basic but adequate. Problem with it was really is in the basement is like a nightclub, and at about 11 o'clock the music started, of course with a very heavy bass line. But having said that, once I nodded off, it didn't make any difference to me. I was on about a third or fourth floor, so it was fairly muted. Ulverston's a bit of an odd place, I thought. It's quite a nice little town, but everybody seemed to be in party mode for some reason. I arrived yesterday afternoon, Friday afternoon. It was like everybody had finished work and was out getting drunk and performing in the street. But anyway, I just got some food and hid in my room. Anyway, today it's quite overcast, but it's pretty warm, and I'm heading for Coniston, where I've earmarked a campsite on the edge of Coniston Lake, Coniston Water I suppose I should say, a place where Donald Campbell came to grief. Anyway, I think it's about 13-14 miles today, so better crack on. Right, just entered the Lake District National Park a few minutes ago, and immediately the scenery becomes more dramatic. That's the Old Man of Coniston, the big mountain there in the centre. In the background just to the left, with a little bit of cloud on the top, you can see Scafell or Scafell Pike. I'm not sure which one. I think that's Scafell with the cloud on. And I think just to the right of that, just almost disappearing behind the ridge leading up to Coniston Old Man, is Scafell Pike. Not sure 100% what those mountains are over there. You can just catch a glimpse of Coniston Water there. I'm not familiar with this angle of the Lake District at all, so I'm sort of having trouble getting my bearings at the moment. But yeah, what a view. I'm heading towards Coniston Water, and hope to pitch up on a campsite on the edge of the lake. Got about half of the walk left to do, and it's still not midday, so yeah, things are going pretty well. It's a bit grey, a bit cool now. Hopefully it won't rain, but who knows. Anyway, catch you later. Day 24, 45 in total. Spent the night last night in a campsite on the shores of Coniston Water. I just had breakfast in the village of Coniston. I'm now climbing up and over onto the hills. Might be able to see in the background behind me, it's pretty misty and murky this morning. Nothing drastic though, just a bit on the grey side, a bit of mist, bit of drizzle earlier. I'm heading for Great Langdale, which is a valley I know pretty well. It's looking like campsites really through the lakes, which is fine, there's plenty of them. Any other sort of accommodation is ludicrously expensive. I think the pub at the campsite where I intend to stay tonight wants about £120 to stay there for the night, so there's no way that I'm paying that. Anyway, not too long a day today, about 9 or 10 miles. A couple of villages on the way that I know where I can stop. I just had breakfast, as I said, in Coniston, but if I want lunch anywhere, so it should be a fairly relaxed day today. Just need to dry the tent out at some point, it's quite wet this morning. The old man of Coniston there. I've been circling around that sort of since yesterday. It's pretty impressive, haven't been up there for quite a few years, but it's a great mountain, great climb with some fabulous views on a clear day. Having said that, it's lifted quite a bit today actually. Early this morning it was quite misty and murky with a bit of drizzle. The clouds lifted. It's quite humid today though. Heading over to Elterwater now, and then on to Chapel Stile in Great Langdale. It's day 25, 46 all told, and today I'm heading from Chapel Stile, where I finished yesterday, which is a small village in the Langdale Valley, a place that I know quite well. I've stayed many a time in the past, but not for a good few years. This valley is, for me, where I first started serious hill walking way back in the mid-90s, and for me, it's the most beautiful of them all. Absolutely stunning scenery. I'll just turn the camera around so you can see. And the mountains you can see in front of you are the Langdale Pikes. The biggest one in the middle there is Harrison Stickle. Now this ridge here has various little lumps and bumps, named lumps and bumps on the top. I used to be able to walk out of the cottage we stayed in back up the valley, straight up the hillside, and walk along the ridge to the Langdale Pikes. In the background, the highest sort of pyramid-shaped peak, small pyramid-shaped peak you can see on the top of the ridge there is Bowfell. I think it's pronounced Bowfell locally, Balfour or something like that. Anyway, Bowfell, most people know it as. Through the trees there, there's a series of lumps and bumps. That's Crinkle Crags, and hidden at the moment behind Lingmore Fell is Pike of Blisco. So I've walked fairly extensively around the head of this valley. In fact, the first serious mountain walk I ever did was up this valley to the far end where I'm going this morning. The path splits into two different directions, and left goes up Rossett Gill, which is where I went at that time, and carried on and climbed to the summit of Scafell Pike, England's highest mountain. Today, when the path splits, I'm going right up a path called to the summit of Stake Pass, and then I'm dropping down into Borrowdale, beautiful Borrowdale, another fabulous valley. Quite a long walk today, sort of 16-17 miles. But after that, I've only got 2 more days and I'm in Carlisle, and that's the end of this trip until I come back to resume and walk across Scotland. Anyway, give you a second there to look at beautiful Langdale, Great Langdale. After a while, Great Langdale turns into this valley, Mickleden, and heads towards the head of the valley where the paths split. On my first walk, I remember coming up here on my own and feeling quite intimidated by all of the surrounding mountains on every side. Over there is the Band, there's Great Tongue, Rossett Pike, and up there is Pike of Stickle. As you get towards the head of the valley, as I say, the paths split, and I'm heading off right up through the gap over there called Stake Pass. Right, I'm at the head of Mickleden now. I've just turned right at the split in the path going up to the Stake Pass, which is there. You might be able to see some people climbing ahead of me. It's a bit of a climb, but steady plod. It shouldn't be too long before I'm up there. There seems to be some sort of helicopter activity over there. You can see that probably now. That's been hovering around for a while, so I'm guessing there's possibly some sort of accident somewhere, I'm not sure. But seems to be looking for someone. And there's the view back down Mickleden where I came from. It's a pretty awe-inspiring area. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Right, I just got to the top of the Stake Pass. I'm now descending into beautiful Langstrath. Only ever been here once before, years and years ago. It's absolutely beautiful. Big mountain you can see in the far background is Skiddaw. I think the one on the right here at the end of the valley is Eagle Crag. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it is. I'm going behind and around Skiddaw tomorrow. Last but one day. Good morning. Day 26, 47 overall. I just left Keswick in the Northern Lake District. I'm heading up into the fells around Skiddaw. It's another beautiful day, a little bit chilly in the wind, but otherwise fine. But the scenery is just absolutely stunning. I'll just turn the camera around a bit so you can see what it's like. That is the Helvellyn range there, the highest area of land there at the back of the range, the far end. Not sure exactly what these fells in the middle are, but there's somewhere around the Greenup Edge Withburn area. I think I can see Bow Fell right in the background there, the little tiny pyramid on top of right in the background above the forested area. I think that's Bow Fell I came past yesterday. And behind the green patch you've got Robinson, and I have to confess I don't know what those mountains are over there. Behind me up here, which you can't see now because it's hidden behind the slope, is Skiddaw, and there's you can see the car park down there. There's a continual trail heading for the summit of Skiddaw. I don't envy them. I just looked at the path, it's almost vertical, zigzagging up to the summit. Looks awful, so I'm glad I'm doing this. I'm heading today actually for a place called Caldbeck, through some of the remote hills behind Skidder. It's called back of Skidder. I'm heading through those hills to Caldbeck, a little village, and that's the end of the lakes, 4-day crossing of the lakes, and then I've just got 1 day left after that to get to Carlisle and the end of this trip. Morning. When planning this hike, particularly through the lakes, I looked at all the options for side excursions over the tops of summits. The Cumbria Way, which is what I'm on, takes a fairly low level route through the lakes, sticking to the valleys and going over the occasional pass, and passes by some pretty impressive mountains, a lot of which I've been up on the top in the past. In the comfort of my armchair, it seemed like quite a good idea, but I would just on a whim decide to skip up a mountain top instead of sticking to the low level route. I think the lump in front of me is Blencathra, which I've been up a few times, and not only Blencathra but numerous other mountains in the lakes that I had earmarked as a possible high level excursion. I haven't taken one of them. I've just taken a look at the mountain in front of me with the rucksack on my back and thought, you got to be joking. So much for armchair mountaineering. Anyway, I don't think it matters whether you're up on the top or in the valley. I'm quite high here anyway, but the scenery all around is superb. But there's no way I'm going up any summits when I don't have to. But I'm just thinking it's the 4th day in the lakes, the last day in the lakes, and I have to say, out of the entire hike, this has been by far the most impressive, as I probably knew it would be. I know the lakes reasonably well, and the main reason I diverted onto the Cumbria Way was to go through the lakes. For me, any Land's End to John O'Groats hike has to include the lakes for me, even if it is a bit of a diversion. Right, I'm just, well, not leaving the lakes exactly, but getting towards the edge of the lakes, I suppose. That's looking back towards Helvellyn and the sunshine. A complete change of scenery. So what I'm heading into now, this is known as the back of Skidder, and it's very cloudy and gloomy, and suddenly beautiful mountains have turned into great big green rounded lumps of hills. There's a pointed hill up ahead. It's very brown in colour, looks more reminiscent of a volcanic cone back in my home island of Tenerife. I'm sure it's not made up of volcanic cinder though. But anyway, yeah, complete contrast, as I say, which I suppose in some ways is good, but it just seems a shame to be leaving the lakes behind on a day like this. Still, there you go. About 4 or 5 miles into 14-mile day now. Since the climb, the initial climb, the going's been quite easy, to be honest, and I can see the track stretching out in front of me towards that brown cone up ahead, so looks like some fairly easy walking for the time being. Hope it lasts, to be honest. Right, into more remote wild country now, and oddly, if you look up in the trees up ahead, you can see a house. That Skiddaw house. There's actually a hostel. There must be one of the remotest hostels in the country, I guess. Don't know what it was originally. Perhaps just an old farmhouse, I don't know, but certainly well out in the wild on its own. Probably a really good place to stay, I would imagine. Clouds breaking up a bit more now. As I say, when I rounded the corner of Lonscale Fell, started heading behind Skiddaw, it was quite grey and gloomy. It still is to a degree, but it's breaking up and there's a lot more sunshine now. Anyway, I think I've got a choice to make soon, because round about Skiddaw House the route splits into two, the Cumbria Way, with a longer westerly, I think it's a more low level route for bad weather. The route goes west, and to the east I think it climbs up onto hilltops, but it's a couple of miles shorter. I'll make a decision when I get there. This is the most northern edge, almost, of the Lake District. That's the last hills, really. Just got a couple to go over before I start descending to Caldbeck. Caldbeck is more or less on the boundary of the national park. It's quite different to a lot of the Lake District. It feels more like the Pennines, to be honest, which you can see actually over there in the background. It's been an interesting day. The first part of the day was very typically Lake District scenery, fantastic mountain scenery. This second half, or latter half, has been quite a bit different, really. Feels totally different. As I say, much more like the Pennines, or even at times remind me of the Cheviots a bit. Anyway, not too much further to go now. Last of the big hills conquered on the Cumbria Way. Just got a couple of slopes to go up and over, and then it's down to Caldbeck. Right, this is the last high point of the Cumbria Way, hike. It's over 2,000 feet. Great panorama. In the distance there, you can see the Pennines. The white dot on the top of the hill you can see in the far distance is the radar station on the top of Great Dun Fell. To the left, the large hill you can see is Cross Fell, which is the highest hill in England outside the Lake District. Swinging round, and quite cold and windy up here, by the way. Looking across into Scotland and over the Salisbury Firth. Those people are going, they're heading the same place as me, Caldbeck. And, yeah. Another day to walk, but I think the scenery is going to be less spectacular tomorrow. But I'm going to get off. I'm freezing. This is wonderful. Right, last day of Cumbria Way and of this particular trip for me. I'm heading for Carlisle. It's an absolutely glorious morning and I've just left the Lake District, and I think most of the way today follows this river, the River Caldew, into Carlisle. Yesterday was another really good day in the hills, up from Keswick, around the foot of Skiddaw, or Skidder as the locals seem to call it, and then round Lonscale Fell and into some completely different hills, some big rounded sort of moorland type hills. A horrible climb up and out of the valley alongside a little tiny stream, and then up onto the last big hill of the Cumbria Way at High Pike, and then descend to Caldbeck village where I stayed last night. About 15 miles today. As I say, mostly easy going. I have read that this day is a bit of a waste of time. Well, all I can say is, unless it changes dramatically over the course of the 15 miles, I have to totally disagree with that. So far it's been absolutely beautiful, and I suppose the weather helps, but even so, this is glorious. Anyway, coming to the end of the second section of what appears to be becoming a 3-section hike of the Land's End to John O'Groats. Not something I intended when I started out, but seems to be neatly dividing up into 3 sections of roughly 400 miles. So I suppose, yeah, what's wrong with that? As I say, not what I intended, but sometimes you can't plan for everything. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed watching the videos. Hopefully in a while I'll be documenting the last section from Carlisle to John O'Groats. Just checked, I'm about 9 miles in on a 15-mile day. There's a village coming up, so I'll see if I can get something to eat or drink, or both, have a sit down. But the thing that I found odd when I worked out the mileage and what I'd got left, about another 6 miles, is after 28 days of walking and getting on somewhere in the region of 400 miles, I'm down to single figures. And another 5 or 6 miles, that'll be it. It's an odd feeling. It seems a bit weird really, that in the morning I won't be getting up sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock, packing up and setting off somewhere. Anyway, I'm sure my feet and legs and other bits of my body that are complaining will breathe a sigh of relief. Anyway, oh, that's a rabbit. Anyway, I can see a road ahead and some houses, so I'm guessing the village is close by. Well, after my earlier statement about the last day of the Cumbria Way, the last 5 miles after Ulverston turned into a tarmac cycle track, so maybe people are right after all. Nearly finished, just coming into the centre of Carlisle, going to get my B&B and go and get a drink, I think.